I want to acknowledge the three corporations that funded this, the Cisco, Intel and Microsoft. In particular, since Greg is online, I want to acknowledge Greg. That every now and again in a project is complex and running in 6 different countries, trying to break through totally new approaches to things. You run into some pretty serious challenges, and Greg has been responsible on numerous occasions for pushing through, crashing through or crashing, as they say. Thanks, Greg. We really, this is part of the framework that I think begins to capture a lot of the thinking that's gone on in here. Because of technology, there are going to be new ways of working, and the companies were concerned that schools were not producing people with the kind of readiness to enter such a digital age workforce. So new ways of thinking, new ways of working, new ways of living in the world, and new tools for working. Just after I took over, we decided that we would focus on ways of thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, information literacy and ICT literacy, and ways of working, communication and collaboration. We couldn't do everything, but we've picked about 6 or 7 of these particular 21st century skills. These don't deny the importance of literacy and numeracy, because they'll continue to be important. And we combined particularly the ICT literacy into this framework. And I want to extend Valerie's idea that she had going from consumer to producer. We're talking here about people using internet as consumer and producer, but then most typically a lot of ICT literacy is about individuals. We're talking now about groups of kids working through social media and social networking. And as they develop through social networking, they're developing the social capital of the group. And as they begin to learn as groups through the internet, they're developing the intellectual capital. We're monitoring everything that the kids do, the actions they take, the time they take between actions, the sequence of activities that take place, and the kind of chat that they use, to interpret this in terms of this framework. And we're now able to produce reports which can show where on this developmental sequence the student is, and we can give advice to teachers about intervention to improve or to get them to grow, which is part of the work that's come in. We have 2 main tasks. Each one takes quite complex tasks. The first one is about using ICT tools to look at the mood and meaning of poetry. And the second one is a scientific task looking at the migration of polar bears, actually, the need to get into the internet, gather the information, formulate and test hypotheses, and then record all of those. And all of that process is logged and then interpreted in terms of the framework. The video does quite a bit of mapping out the collaborative problem solving, the social and cognitive skills, participation, the extent to which they participate in it, the extent to which they can see this perspective of somebody else, and the way in which the group is organised, the way in which they explore the task and then build this, going from being able to just explore the bits and pieces of information they have through to formulating and testing hypotheses in a problem-solving hierarchy. The interesting thing that we've managed to be able to do is to take the groups of people and produce individual reports on each one of how they're situated on each of these strands. And again, to do that within a developmental framework that enables a teacher to know where to intervene. We don't go as far as telling the teacher how to intervene, so we're not scripting it for the teachers. Our developmental continuum in the social strand, we can look at how they clarify and act with independence. They become aware of the importance of partnership. These have become much more elaborate in the reports. How they resolve differences between the pairs of students working, make a mutual commitment, and then go to shared goals and appreciation of the task. These are a developmental sequence and a hierarchy in terms of the data that we've got. We've tested about 6,000 pairs of students around the world to do this. In the cognitive strand, developing through trial and error exploration, directed approach, systematic, strategic planning, systematic and methodical approaches, and then application and solving the problem in a collaborative way. We produced 3 reports. And these are different to the kind of reports that you might see normally. This is what we call a learning readiness report. This is the developmental continuum, and these descriptions indicate the levels of the developmental progression that I just showed you. It's a bit artificial. This student has gone off the scale, but the black mark here indicates where the student is. We produce a class report, and the class report indicates that there's quite a huge amount of variation across students within a class. Makes a nonsense of a teacher performing in front of the class, because we need to be able to take every student as a learner, and that's just something that's come up in every group. But the teacher if they're confronted with 25, 30, in some cases 40 kids, and we say have an individual learning plan, teachers throw up their hands and say, I can't do it. But what we're able to show is that no class has 40 individual students all at different levels. And if these are the intervention stages for teaching, we can see we've got a group of students up here, another one in the middle, and we've got about 3 groups of instructional groups of kids in this class, and teachers can handle that for different. And then there's the profile report, and this one only has 2, but if we have 3 bars on it, we'd have social, cognitive, and ICT literacy, so that this becomes the kind of overall profile. The challenge for the teacher when you've got strands like that is how to blend them together into an instructional medium. So we've developed a fairly sophisticated system. We have 2 models. One is being put onto the cloud through Microsoft and its partner company Janison in New South Wales. But we also have a portable system which we're able to put into even something as small a unit as a school, onto a school server, so that all those tasks then become available, and the reports in every case, whether it's on the cloud or on the portable system, the teachers get those reports same day. We have a series of prototype assessment tasks, some of which you've seen some details of, but there's about 12 hours of assessment tasks that the teachers can use. A whole series of developmental progressions which become the basis of reports and feedback for schools, teachers and students, where we report more on what is the student ready to learn, not what they have learned. So we're using a Vygotskian idea of looking for that zone of proximal development, and we believe we can show that. We've also, because we're changing the paradigm of instruction away from whole class instruction and to developmental learning, teachers need some background in that, so we're putting online a whole series of professional development modules, not just how to use the system, how to interpret the data and what sort of teaching implications that might be. And we're publishing everything, putting it all in the public domain, so that we hope other developers will take what we've done, do it faster, cheaper, better, and we hope that we're part of that. It's only taken us 4.5 years to get to this stage. We hope that other people can get to it a little faster than we have. PISA in 2015, OECD has decided to use human-to-computer interaction. In 2018, on the books is suggested that they will have human-to-human. They're waiting on the technology to become available. And ours has never, ever assumed that it couldn't be done. When we began to identify the internet-based interaction, I just thought that that's what we'd do. It didn't occur to me that it would be difficult. I just thought we had very clever people and therefore they would solve all the problems, and they did. We have the 2 versions. We have local adaptations, decision making, or if you get the portable system. The only problem that we see with this is that it's Flash, written in Flash, or most of it. Some of it is written in PHP. But this means that if you're an iPad school, it won't work, at least yet. I'm sure some very bright person will invent a browser that will read interactive Flash applications on an iPad, because it is only a browser problem. The rest of it has all been reprogrammed by this company in Coffs Harbour and reprogrammed everything in HTML5. That had other challenges because HTML5 is not the language of games. Flash is the language of games. We wrote everything as games. But they've been very clever and solved most of those problems. So that we expect everything to become online and available in April of this year. Now, I want to pick up, using that framework, just a few things that was said. I really liked and congratulate Alice. I think that's a superb example of many of the things that we're talking about. One of the things I interpreted from what Alice was saying, that she was using the content of sharks and science as a context for teaching higher order thinking, decision making, and those sorts of collaborative problem solving skills. We also had intro to the idea that teachers need to be working in teams. In fact, what we'll be doing in our professional development modules is trying to get teachers to work as collaborative problem solvers as well, so that they model and go through the kinds of things that we're trying to get kids to learn. And if we can generalise that across education, that teachers work in collaborative teams, from a collaborative problem solving perspective, it will change the nature of teaching. And if we can have the idea that there is variability across kids in the classroom, that every student has a right to learn, then we can't excuse and we can't support the whole notion of whole class instruction any longer. So the notion of 21st century in teaching and learning does need to change. The values and beliefs that Julia was talking about needs to incorporate the idea that we need to focus on every child in the classroom. And some of the work that we've been doing at Melbourne, we published on the front page of The Age here in January, showing that most of the growth that we're getting is because teachers are focusing on the bottom quartile of kids, and our top quartile is flatlining. We're not developing them at all. We would expect to see that if we can get the kind of differentiation of instruction, we would expect that we would be able to see all of the kids rising in their development. So there's a lot of things, and that I think means that there needs to be a change in the basic principles of pedagogy, away from performance to facilitation. And I know that's rhetoric and it's been around for a long time, but it really does need to be accentuated.